I still remember the way she looked at me that night, like she hadn't decided yet whether I was trouble or something she'd already been waiting for. It started simple. I dropped by to return a book her niece had borrowed from class. The house was half-lit, quiet in that way that makes every sound feel personal. The hum of the fridge, the soft click of her heels on tile. I hadn't expected her to be the one to answer the door. "How late, aren't you?" she said, one brow raised. Her voice was smooth, a little dry, the kind that carries both warmth and warning. I shrugged, holding up the book like a peace offering. Didn't think it was that late. Her eyes, that deep brown with just enough distance in them, flicked to the clock behind me. "My sister's out of town. You can leave it with me." She turned and walked toward the kitchen, not waiting for me to follow, but somehow knowing I would. The place smelled faintly of rain and something floral, maybe her perfume, maybe the open window. She set the book down on the counter, fingers brushing the worn cover as if she was remembering something else. I stood awkwardly near the doorway, pretending to look around, but really just watching how her blouse moved against her back when she reached for a glass. "You want some tea?" she asked, not looking at me. "Sure," I said. She smiled, almost like she hadn't expected me to answer. While the kettle hummed, silence filled in around us. Not heavy, not light either. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, studying me in that calm, assessing way older people sometimes do when they're not sure whether to treat you like an adult yet. "You were in the same class as my niece, right?" "Yeah." She said, "You're the one who got her into writing." Her lips twitched, a mix of pride and something private. "I used to write. Haven't in a while." I nodded, but my attention kept slipping, the way her thumb traced the rim of the glass, the faint line of tiredness under her eyes. She wasn't the kind of woman who tried to look younger than she was. She wore her age like something earned, not hidden. The kettle whistled. She turned, brushed past me to reach the mugs, and her arm grazed mine. Just a second of contact, skin on skin, enough to make me forget the sound of boiling water. She must have felt it too. Her hand paused in midair, then she exhaled softly and went on pouring. When she handed me my cup, her fingers lingered a beat too long on mine. The steam rose between us. I caught a faint tremor in her breath, or maybe it was mine. We talked about nothing, weather, books, how quiet the neighborhood got after 10. Every word seemed to circle something neither of us wanted to name. At some point, she looked toward the window, then back at me. "You shouldn't be out late," she said again, but softer now. "People get the wrong idea." I laughed once quiet. "About you or me?" Her eyes met mine. Maybe both. The room seemed to still, just the low hum of the fridge, the drip of rain outside. Then she said, almost casually, "You can stay till morning if it's easier. Roads will be slick." I didn't answer right away. The space between us felt alive, waiting. And then, a sound from the hallway. The faint creak of another door opening. She turned sharply toward it, hand frozen on her cup. "Wait here," she whispered. Her eyes lingered on me for one long second. Then she disappeared down the dark hall. The house felt different once she left the room. Quieter, heavier. I could still hear the faint pad of her footsteps down the hallway, the soft creak of a door, then nothing. I waited, pretending not to notice how my pulse hadn't settled since she brushed past me. My tea had gone cold. The clock over the sink ticked too loudly. When she came back, she was barefoot, holding a folded blanket. "Guest room's a mess," she said, voice lower now. "You can take the couch if you want." "I don't mind," I said. She laid the blanket on the armrest, smoothing it more than necessary. "It gets cold here at night." There was something careful in the way she spoke, like every word was checked before it left her mouth. But the way her fingers stayed on the fabric, how she avoided meeting my eyes, that told a different story. I wanted to say something, anything that didn't sound like what I was actually thinking. Instead, I said, "You live alone?" She looked up then. "Yeah, my daughter's grown. She's in college." Her tone was light, but the pause that followed wasn't. She took a sip of her tea, then added, almost to herself, "It's quieter than I thought it would be." I nodded, trying not to stare at the ring mark on her finger, pale against her skin, long since free of any gold. I didn't ask, but she caught me looking anyway. "It's been a while," she said. Not defensive, just stating it. Then, with a small shrug, some people don't come back. I swallowed hard, pretending to adjust my seat. Guess we all have someone like that. She studied me for a moment, eyes softening. You're too young to talk like that. Maybe, I said, but I get it. She smiled. Not a happy one, more like a private acknowledgement. Then she crossed her arms and leaned against the counter beside me, close enough that her shoulder brushed mine. The air seemed to shift again. Her perfume, faint jasmine and something warmer, like cedar, wrapped around me. I could feel her breath when she spoke. People talk, you know, she said, almost teasing. A boy your age spending the night. Boy, I echoed. That's harsh. That earned a real laugh, low, short, breaking the tension for a second. All right, she said, shaking her head. Man, then. The word landed differently coming from her. We stood there like that, not speaking, our reflections in the dark window facing us. Her hand lifted slightly, as if to fix my collar, then stopped halfway. I saw her hesitate, then continue, fingers brushing my neck as she straightened the edge. Better, she murmured. My throat tightened. Thanks. She drew back, eyes meeting mine, and for a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The silence was full of everything we weren't saying. Then she stepped away, clearing her throat. Get some rest, she said softly. Long night ahead. But as she turned off the light, her hand brushed my arm again, slow, deliberate, almost like she wanted to memorize the feel of it. And this time, she didn't apologize that I didn't sleep much that night. The couch was soft, the blanket warm, but every sound from down the hallway pulled me awake. The creak of a floorboard, the soft click of a door. Around 3, rain started again, light but steady, tapping against the window like it was trying to be heard. I gave up on sleep and sat up. Her light was still on. I hesitated before knocking, telling myself it was just to say good night properly. Just that. She opened the door before I could knock twice. She wasn't asleep either, hair loose, sweater hanging off one shoulder, eyes a little tired but alert. Couldn't rest? She asked. Guess not. She stepped back slightly. Come in, then. Might as well be sleepless together. Her room smelled like lavender and rain, the kind of scent that clings to memory. A half-finished cup of tea sat on her desk, the book I'd returned lying open beside it. I was reading, she said, closing it. Didn't realize how late it got. We sat on the edge of the bed, a careful space between us. The clock ticked somewhere behind me, louder than it should have been. She looked at me, really looked, and the quiet stretched thin. Your niece said you're good with words, I said, just to fill the air. She wasn't wrong. That's generous, she said. I used to be better at saying what I meant. You still are, I said. Then softer, maybe too good. Her lips parted, just a hint of a smile, then gone. You shouldn't say things like that. I didn't mean yes, you did. Her voice barely above a whisper. We sat there, eyes locked, the space between us smaller than it had been a second ago. I could see the faint line of her pulse near her collarbone, the way her breath quickened, shallow. Then, from somewhere down the hall, the sharp ping of a phone notification. It broke the moment like glass. She turned away fast, reaching for the mug though it was empty. Probably my sister, she murmured, checking in. I nodded, though she didn't look at me. I should, she started, but her voice faltered. I stood too, slow, like moving might wake something we'd both been pretending wasn't there. When she finally turned back, we were too close. Her hand brushed my arm, not by accident this time, then slid away halfway, caught between wanting and refusing. You're making this harder, she whispered. I'm not trying to. I know. She looked down, exhaled. That's the problem. A beat passed, then another. Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance. The air between us was charged, the kind of tension that makes every movement feel dangerous. She lifted her hand, fingers trembling just slightly, and rested it against my chest, right where my heart was pounding. I can't, she began, but the rest never came. We stayed like that, her palm against me, my breath catching. The room, the rain, the world, everything seemed to pause. Then she stepped back, eyes shining with something she wasn't going to say. Good night, she whispered. I didn't move. Couldn't. She closed the door slowly, leaving just a crack of light spilling through. And I stood there, listening to the soft click when it shut, the sound of two people trying and failing to stay on the right side of a line that had already blurred. Morning came gray and slow. The rain hadn't stopped, just softened, steady enough to blur the windows, quiet enough to make the whole house feel sealed off from the world. She was in the kitchen when I woke, hair tied loosely, sweater slipping off her shoulder again. She looked tired but collected, like she'd already built the walls back up around whatever had almost happened. "Coffee?" she asked without looking at me. "Please." She poured it into a chipped mug, slid it across the counter. I caught her hand accidentally, or maybe not accidentally, when I reached for it. The touch was small, quick, but she froze. Neither of us pulled away right away. "You were up late," she said finally, her voice too calm. "So were you." She gave a quiet, humorless laugh. "You heard. Hard not to." That pulled her eyes to mine, brief, sharp, then softening. "We should stop doing this," she said, though her hand hadn't moved from under mine. "Doing what?" I asked. She looked down, making excuses to talk, pretending it's harmless. "It doesn't feel harmless." She exhaled, the sound small but weighted. "That's exactly why." I wanted to step back, give her space, but instead I found myself closing the distance, drawn in by something I didn't have words for. She didn't move, just watched me with that same steady, unreadable calm. Her breath hitched when I brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You shouldn't, I know," I said. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. My hand lingered near her jaw, fingers brushing the side of her neck, warm, soft, trembling under my touch. "This is wrong," she whispered. "I've tried to believe that," I said quietly, "but I can't." She turned then, as if to move away, but I caught her wrist, gently, enough for her to feel the question in the gesture, not the demand. Her pulse thudded against my palm. "Say something," I said. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth." She looked at me like the word had landed somewhere deep. "You're young," she said finally. "And you're not old," I interrupted. She smiled faintly, shaking her head. "That's not the point." "Then what is?" "That people talk. That I should know better. That I promised myself I wouldn't get close again. And yet," her gaze lifted, meeting mine. "And yet." The silence that followed felt alive, electric. My hand still around her wrist, her breath shallow, her body a breath away from mine. I leaned in, close enough to feel her exhale against my skin. Her eyes fluttered closed, just for a second. Then, the sharp vibration of her phone on the counter. She startled, pulling back fast, knocking the mug over. Coffee spilled, running dark between us. Her phone lit up, niece calling. She stared at the screen, then at me, torn, flushed, breathless. "I have to get that," she said. Her voice shook, but before she reached for the phone, she whispered, almost to herself, "If you stay any longer, I won't stop myself next time." And for the first time, I believed her. The rain finally stopped by afternoon, but the air stayed heavy, like the world hadn't decided if it wanted to move on or hold its breath. She hadn't spoken much since that morning. We moved around each other like ghosts, quiet, deliberate, pretending not to remember the moment we almost crossed a line. She stood by the window, arms folded, watching the wet street. I could see her reflection in the glass, pale and thoughtful. "You're quiet," I said. "So are you." I waited. She didn't turn. Then, without looking back, she said, "My niece called again." I felt my chest tighten. "Yeah." She asked if you made it home last night. My stomach dropped. "What did you tell her?" I said you stayed. "Because it was raining." "That's true," I said. She finally turned then, eyes unreadable. "She said she told you to bring that book over days ago." I blinked. "She did. She also said she didn't ask you to drop it off last night." The words hit like a slow, spreading chill. She watched me. Not angry. Not yet. Just waiting for what I'd say. I started, then stopped. "I guess I wanted to see you." Her breath caught, a soft, involuntary sound. "So you lied," she said quietly. "I didn't think. That's exactly it." Her voice sharpened, then broke into something softer. "You didn't think." I stepped closer before I could stop myself. "No, I did. I've been thinking about you since the first time we met." She closed her eyes, shaking her head. "You don't understand what you're playing with." Then explain it to me. Her hands clenched at her sides, trembling slightly. You're making me feel like I'm doing something wrong just for wanting to feel seen again. The words hung between us, bare, fragile, real. I took another step. She didn't move this time. Maybe we both are, I said, doing something wrong. She exhaled, a sound halfway between a sigh and a laugh. You're too young to say things that make sense. Maybe that's why you listen. Her gaze flicked to mine, sharp, then softening, as if she was about to say something she'd regret. Instead, she reached for the counter behind her, steadying herself. Her fingers brushed mine again. The same pulse of heat, the same impossible pull. You should leave before I forget myself, she whispered. I don't think you already haven't, I said. Her eyes widened, not in shock but recognition. The silence stretched until it hurt. Then, from the hallway, the faint sound of a door unlocking. She froze. My sister, she breathed. She came home early. Panic flickered in her voice, but underneath it, something else. I stepped back, too fast, knocking into the table. Her hand reached out instinctively, catching my arm to steady me. For one suspended moment, we were too close again, heartbeats colliding, breath shared. We can't do this, she whispered. But neither of us moved. And as her sister's voice called her name from the other room, she didn't let go. Her sister's voice carried faintly from the front door, calling her name again. Footsteps echoed down the hall, distant but getting closer. She looked at me. Panic, longing, guilt, all tangled in one breath. You need to go, she whispered, already moving toward the hall. But I didn't move. Couldn't. Not like this. Please, she said, almost begging. If she sees, she'll think what she already suspects, I said, stepping closer. That something's here. Her jaw tightened. And is there. That stopped me cold. The question hung there, raw and trembling, and I knew if I answered wrong, it would end everything. So I told the truth. Yes. Her breath hitched, eyes closing as if the word itself hurt. She took one step back, then forward again, indecisive, trembling. You shouldn't have said that. I had to. Her sister called again, closer now. She'll be in here any second, she said, her voice shaking. Then let her, I said. At least she'll see something real. That broke her composure. Don't, she said sharply. Don't make this harder than it already is. I'm not trying to make it harder, I said softly. I'm trying to make it honest. She looked up then, and something in her broke, the restraint, the careful distance. She stepped toward me, so close I could feel the heat from her skin, smell the faint trace of rain still clinging to her hair. Do you know what you're doing? She whispered. No, I said. Do you? Her answer was a shake of her head, but she didn't step back. The front door clicked shut again. Her sister must have gone upstairs. The silence that followed was deafening. She lifted her hand, brushed my cheek lightly, like she was memorizing the texture of something she wasn't allowed to keep. Her touch trailed to my jaw, then stopped. I should tell you to leave, she said, voice unsteady. You already did, I murmured. Twice. She laughed, quiet, breathless, almost broken. You don't make this easy. You don't want easy. That hit something deep. Her hand dropped, but I caught it before it fell away. Our fingers tangled without thought, without plan. This is the point where we both mess up, she said softly. Maybe, I said. Or maybe it's the only honest thing either of us will do. Her eyes searched mine. Conflict, desire, fear, everything at once. The kind of look that changes things. She leaned in just enough that I felt her breath against my lips, just enough that the air between us felt electric, unsteady, alive. Then she whispered, If I don't stop now, I won't stop at all. And I said, Then don't. The pause that followed wasn't silence. It was a heartbeat stretched to eternity. Then she pressed her forehead to mine, trembling, whispering, God help me. Her hand slipped from mine as she stepped back. One slow, final retreat. I can't, she said, voice breaking. Not like this. And for the first time, I didn't chase her. Because I understood it wasn't rejection. It was mercy that I didn't see her for a week after that night. No calls. No messages. Just silence, the kind that sits heavy The kind that keeps you awake even when nothing's wrong except the space where someone used to be. I told myself she'd made her choice, that I should respect it, that I wouldn't show up at her door again. And I didn't. Not until a week later, when her niece handed me back the same book I'd used as an excuse to see her the first time. She said, "You forgot it," her niece said with a shrug. Said to give it to you in person. There was a note inside, just one line, written in her steady, looping handwriting. "If you're still awake late, stop by. The light will be on this time." Well, I got there. It wasn't raining for once. The air was warm, almost sweet from the garden outside. The porch light was glowing, just like she said. She opened the door before I could knock. "You came," she said, half smiling. "You left the light on." For a second, neither of us knew how to start. Then she stepped aside. "Come in." The house was quieter than I remembered. No storm, no panic, just a stillness that felt earned. She'd changed her hair, maybe trimmed it, but it was still her, same calm, same quiet weight behind every glance. "I thought I ruined it," I said finally. Her lips curved faintly. "You didn't ruin anything. You just scared me." "I didn't mean to." "I know." She exhaled, leaning against the counter where we'd stood that first night. "You made me remember I could still want something." That was the part one wasn't ready for. I moved closer, slower this time, careful not to break the fragile peace between us. "I didn't come to push," I said. "Just to see you." Her eyes softened. "You always say the wrong thing the right way." We both laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that comes after too much silence. She reached out first, her hand brushing my sleeve, then staying there. "You still shouldn't be out this late," she murmured. "Then maybe I should stay till morning." Her laugh came out low, a little shaky, but she didn't pull back. Instead, she stepped closer, close enough that our hands found each other naturally, fingers fitting like they'd been waiting. "No ruse, no pretense, just warmth." She leaned into me, her head resting against my shoulder. I felt her exhale, slow, steady, like she was finally letting go of something she'd been holding too long. "Maybe this doesn't have to make sense," she whispered. "Maybe it just has to be real," I said. We stayed like that. No words, no clock ticking too loud this time. Just her heartbeat against mine, quiet but certain. When she finally looked up, her smile was small but sure. "Stay," she said simply. And I did. "Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?"